My name is Emily Carter. I grew up in the heart of Nebraska, in a town so small you could drive through it in 5 minutes and still have time to wave at every person along the way. It was the kind of place where life was predictable, where routine wasn't just a habit, it was a way of survival. I never longed for grand adventures. My world was the town library, where I worked every day, lost in the quiet hum of pages turning and the soft murmur of visitors searching for stories to take home. I loved the stillness of it, the way books held truths that people often overlooked. I liked knowing that when I woke up, my day would be exactly as planned. No surprises, no chaos, just the comfort of the expected. Faith was never part of my world. I had watched my mother cling to it like a life raft when my father walked out on us, her whispered prayers filling the night as if they could stitch back the pieces of a broken home. But I never saw miracles unfold. I never saw prayers answered. All I knew was that life was hard and you had to rely on yourself to survive. I believed in things I could touch, things I could fix. If the sink leaked, I grabbed a wrench. If the power flickered, I changed the fuse. I depended on no one. That night was no different. The autumn wind carried a sharp bite as I stepped onto my porch. The light bulb by the front door had burned out. I sighed, grabbed a new one from the kitchen drawer, and reached for my toolbox. The night air felt colder than usual, whispering of winter creeping closer, but I barely noticed. It was just another task, something to fix, something to control. I positioned the ladder against the wooden frame, my fingers gripping the cool metal as I climbed, my mind already on tomorrow's to-do list. I had done this a dozen times before. I knew the steps, the rhythm, the careful balance it required. But that night something was different. A tremor in the metal, a brief misstep. The ladder wobbled beneath me, and before I could react, gravity seized me in its merciless grip. The fall was an instant, yet it felt stretched, distorted, like a film reel slowing down to capture every agonizing detail. The rush of wind against my skin, the sharp gasp that escaped my lips, the sickening lurch of my stomach as the world tilted out of place. And then impact, a brutal, jarring collision against the wooden porch. A crack, an unnatural foreign sound that for a moment, I didn't even recognize as my own bones breaking. Searing, unrelenting pain. It erupted through me like fire, igniting every nerve, every fiber of my being. I tried to move, to breathe, but the agony anchored me, trapping me in that moment, in that unbearable stillness. And then came the silence. The kind of silence that doesn't belong in this world. I didn't remember closing my eyes. I didn't remember slipping away. But I knew, deep down in a way that defied logic, I was no longer in control. I was no longer anywhere at all. Pain was the last thing I remembered. A sharp, unforgiving pain that surged through my body like fire. An unbearable weight pressing down on my chest, stealing my breath. And then nothing. No sound. No sensation. No time. I should have been afraid. But fear didn't exist here. Instead, there was a strange detachment, as if I had been lifted out of my own reality and placed into something different. Then I saw it, my body. It was lying motionless on the wooden porch, sprawled at an unnatural angle. The ladder had crashed to the side, its metallic frame twisted. The sight should have sent terror coursing through me. But I felt nothing. It was like looking at an old photograph of someone I used to know, a person who had existed in another time, another place. I tried to move, but I had no weight, no substance. I hovered above the scene, untethered, weightless. Then the stillness shattered. A door creaked open. Footsteps, hurried, uneven, pounded against the porch. My neighbor, Jim, emerged from the darkness, his face twisted in alarm. "Emily! Emily!" He rushed toward my lifeless body, kneeling beside me, his hands shaking as he fumbled for his phone. I could hear the tremor in his voice as he dialed for help. I should have felt panic. I should have screamed, fought, begged for someone to hear me. But the world below me was slipping further away. And then something changed. Pull. Shift. The house, the porch, Jim, the broken ladder. Everything began to blur, fading as if swallowed by an unseen force. I was moving. No, I was being pulled. A darkness unlike anything I had ever known surrounded me, vast and endless. It was not the darkness of night, not the absence of light, but a void. A consuming, tangible emptiness that stretched beyond reason. And then the voices came. Whispers at first, distant and unintelligible, curling through the void like smoke. They were layered, overlapping, impossible to understand. But as I descended deeper, they grew louder, clearer. Asterisk, she never believed. Asterisk, asterisk, she rejected the truth. Asterisk, asterisk, she thought she had all the answers. Asterisk. Each word struck like a knife, slicing through me with a pain deeper than the body I had left behind. These voices knew me. They spoke of my doubts, my choices, my life. They echoed the thoughts I had buried, the justifications I had made. A sickening realization settled over me. I was being judged. I tried to resist, to claw my way back. But there was nothing to hold on to. The descent continued. Faster now. The whispers turned into a chorus, their weight pressing against me like a force I could not escape. Then, from the depths of the darkness, something else stirred. Presence. And it was waiting for me. I was falling. Not in the way a body falls through space, with wind resistance and gravity pulling it downward. This was different. It was a force beyond the physical. An invisible grip dragging me deeper into something I couldn't understand, something vast and infinite. The darkness around me was not empty. It was alive, touching, surrounding me like a suffocating presence. And the voices, they were relentless. She never believed. She rejected the truth. She thought she could do it alone. Their words wrapped around me like chains, cold and unbreakable. They knew me. Not just the person I had shown to the world, but the deepest parts of me. The doubts, the pride, the times I had turned away when faith knocked at my door. I had always dismissed the idea of an afterlife, of judgment, of anything beyond what I could see and touch. But here I was, and I was powerless. Then the whispers stopped. A silence more terrifying than any sound swallowed everything. And in that silence I felt it. Something was ahead of me, waiting. I couldn't see it, but I knew it was there. The air was thick with something indescribable, like the weight of impending doom pressing against my chest. Then a single sound cut through the void. Growl. Low. Guttural. Filled with something ancient and cruel. A chill shot through me, deeper than fear, deeper than anything I had ever felt. The darkness shifted, and I saw movement. Shapes just beyond the edge of my vision, twisted, writhing, pulsing with a hunger I couldn't comprehend. I tried to scream, but I had no voice. I tried to run, but there was nowhere to go. Then the first hand reached for me. A clawed, gnarled thing, its fingers stretching from the shadows, curling toward my arm. The moment it touched me, a pain unlike anything I had ever known surged through me. Not just physical pain, something deeper. A pain that came from knowing I was completely and utterly alone. I wanted to fight, to push it away. But I had no strength. And then light. A pinprick at first, distant, almost imperceptible against the suffocating blackness. But it grew. Brighter. Stronger. It wasn't just light, it was warmth. Presence. And it was calling me. The darkness recoiled. The clawed hand snapped back as if burned. The shadows writhed and twisted in agony as the light expanded, filling every inch of space around me. And then I was moving, no longer falling. I was being pulled upward, drawn toward the light with a force stronger than gravity, stronger than anything I had ever known. I looked down one last time at the abyss below me. The darkness still lingered, waiting, but it had lost me, and something else had found me. Let me know if you want the next chapter now. I was rising. The darkness that had held me captive was shrinking below, its grip broken by something greater, something beyond my understanding. The light ahead wasn't just bright. It was alive. It pulsed, not like fire or the sun, but like something woven from pure love, pure warmth. For the first time since I had fallen, I felt safe. The voices were gone. The shadows had retreated. And then, from within the light, a figure emerged. At first, it was only an outline, a silhouette moving within the radiance. But as it drew closer, the details became clearer. A man. Not just any man. Something in me knew, in a way deeper than thought, deeper than reason. This was the one. The source of the light. The presence that had shattered the darkness. His robe was not made of fabric but of something beyond it, flowing like liquid light. His face. How do you describe the indescribable? There was no anger, no judgment, only eyes that saw everything. Every wound, every regret, every moment of doubt and fear I had ever carried. And still there was love. A love so vast it filled every part of me, dissolving the last remnants of fear I had clung to my entire life. I wanted to speak, to ask where I was, to ask if I was dead. But before I could form the words, he spoke. Millie. Name. Not just a sound but a calling. Knowing. As if he had always known me, long before I had ever existed. Tears welled in my eyes. Not because of sorrow, not because of pain, but because for the first time in my life I knew. I had spent so many years believing I was alone, that I had to fight through life on my own, that I couldn't rely on anyone, not even God. But here he was, real, and I had never been alone. The weight of my life fell away. Every wall I had built, every doubt I had used as a shield, crumbled in his presence. I wanted to reach for him, to tell him everything, to ask why he had come for me when I had never sought him. But before I could, something changed. The space around us shifted. Below us, the world appeared. Not just the hospital where my body lay, but my life. Every choice, every path I had taken. The moments where I had pushed love away. The times I had chosen pride over grace, stubbornness over faith. And then I saw them. People. So many people. Some I recognized. Family, old friends, even strangers I had only passed by on the street. Others were unknown to me. But the weight of their stories pressed against my soul. They were searching, wandering, lost in their own battles. Just as I had been. I turned back to him, my heart pounding. Why are you showing me this? He didn't answer. But I already knew. This was not the end. Before we continue this incredible journey, I want to invite you to be part of something special. Leave a comment below with your name and city. In the next video, we'll send a personalized shout-out to some of you. Your name spoken in front of thousands of people, a part of our amazing community. And if this story is touching your heart, don't forget to hit the like button. Your support helps us bring these powerful messages to more people who need to hear them. Let's continue this journey together. I stood before him, my heart pounding with a mixture of awe and longing. The weight of my past, my doubts, my fears, they no longer mattered in his presence. They held no power. Yet, I wasn't just here to be comforted. I could feel it deep within me. There was a reason for this, a purpose. The vision before us continued shifting and unfolding, like pages of a book written before time itself. I saw more faces, more lives, intertwined in ways I could not yet understand. Some were people I had known, family, old friends, even strangers I had barely noticed in passing. Others were unknown to me, but their presence carried weight, as if their stories were tied to mine. They were searching, wondering, just as I had been. I turned back to him, the words forming in my mind before I could even voice them. What now? He looked at me, and though his lips did not move, I felt his answer resonate through me. You must tell them. The words echoed, wrapping around my very existence, carving themselves into my soul. I knew what he meant, but the thought terrified me. Who would believe me? Who would listen? I had spent my entire life pushing faith away, refusing to acknowledge its presence. And now I was being sent back to be its messenger. The weight of it nearly crushed me. But I don't know how, I whispered, my voice small, uncertain. He took a step closer, and the warmth of his presence enveloped me completely. You were chosen, not because I was worthy, not because I had earned it, but because he knew me, knew my heart, knew my struggles, knew my resistance, and still he called me. Tears streamed down my face. I had spent my whole life believing I had control, that I didn't need anyone, that I could handle everything on my own. But here, in the presence of the one who created me, I realized how small I was, how much I had missed, and how desperately the world needed to know. My time here was ending. I could feel it. The warmth around me began to shift, and a deep sorrow filled my chest. I didn't want to leave. Not yet. Not after everything I had seen, everything I had felt. But he had already given me my answer. Tell them. Then the light around me flickered, and I was falling again. I was falling, but this time it was different. There was no terror, no endless void pulling me into darkness. The light still surrounded me, wrapping around me like a whisper of warmth, but I could feel it slipping away, fading, as if I were being pulled backward, away from everything I had just experienced. I didn't want to leave. Not now. Not after everything I had seen, everything I had felt. I tried to reach out, to hold on, but I was already being drawn away. The light blurred, the warmth faded, and then pain. A gasp tore from my throat as my body lurched awake. The air burned as it rushed into my lungs, my chest heaving as if I had been drowning and had just broken through the surface. The sounds came next. Machines beeping, voices shouting, the clatter of movement around me. I was back. The weight of my body felt unbearable. Every inch of me ached. My limbs were heavy. My head was spinning. I tried to move, but even the effort of blinking felt like lifting a mountain. "She's back!" someone shouted. A nurse appeared above me, her eyes wide with disbelief. My vision was blurred, but I could see it. The sheer shock written across her face. A doctor rushed in, his voice urgent as he called for another round of tests. I had been gone. I had died. For 8 minutes. I should have been brain dead. I should have suffered massive damage. But instead I was awake. Aware. Changed. The memory of what had just happened, the light, the presence, the words spoken to me, clashed violently with the reality of this cold, sterile hospital room. Felt surreal. How could I possibly explain this? Would anyone believe me? I swallowed, my throat dry, my mind racing. And then, through the haze, I remembered the last thing he had said to me. Tell them. The weight of those 2 words pressed against my chest, heavier than the pain of my broken body. I had seen what waited beyond this world. I had stood before the truth itself. And now I had to speak. But where would I begin? Before we continue this journey, I want to invite you to be part of something truly special. Leave a comment below with your name and city. In the next video, we'll send a personalized message to some of you. Imagine that. Your name spoken in front of thousands of people, a part of our incredible community. And if this story is reaching you, if it's stirring something in your heart, we ask for one small favor. Hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel. We don't make money doing this. We do it because we love it. Because these stories need to be told. But your support, your like and your subscription helps us more than you know. It allows us to keep going, keep sharing, to keep reaching those who need to hear these messages. So if you feel connected to this, if you believe in what we're doing, join us. Be part of this community. Let's continue this journey together.
The days that followed my return were a blur of questions, whispers, and uncertainty. Doctors came and went, shaking their heads in disbelief. Nurses whispered in the hallways, exchanging glances every time they checked my vitals. I heard them murmur about how impossible it was, how I had been clinically dead for 8 full minutes and yet suffered no brain damage, no complications. I should have been a medical anomaly, a case to be studied, analyzed, dissected by science. But I wasn't just a miracle of survival. I had been changed. Not just in my body, but in my soul. I had seen eternity. I had stood before him. And he had given me a mission. Tell them. The words echoed in my soul, imprinted on me as deeply as my own heartbeat. I could still feel the warmth of his presence. I could still hear the weight of his voice in every breath I took. But how could I begin? How could I look into the eyes of people who had never experienced what I had and expect them to believe me? I tried once. I told a nurse what had happened. I told her about the darkness that had surrounded me, the voices that had accused me, the unbearable weight of their judgment. I told her about the light that saved me, the love that overwhelmed me, the presence of him. She smiled politely. "That's probably just your brain trying to protect you," she said, her voice kind but dismissive. A response to trauma. Many people who experience near-death events report visions like that. A response to trauma. I wanted to argue. I wanted to shake her, to tell her that what I saw was real. That it was not a hallucination, not a dream, not some neurological trick my dying brain had played on me. I had been there. I had seen him. I had felt the love of God. And I had been sent back for a reason. But what if no one believed me? That fear clawed at me in the days after I left the hospital. The world outside felt different. The air was crisp, the sun warmer than I remembered, as if everything had been bathed in a light I had never noticed before. Or maybe it was me who had changed. Before, I had gone through life assuming I knew all the answers, that I had to do everything on my own. That faith was a crutch, a comforting lie for people too weak to face the reality of life's cruelty. I had been blind. I had been arrogant. And yet, he had still come for me. Not in anger, not in judgment, but in love. That realization settled over me like a tidal wave, crashing through every wall I had built around my heart. I wasn't alone. I had never been alone. Even in my worst moments, even in the times when I had turned away from him, rejected him, denied him, he had been there, watching, waiting, calling me back to him. And now, he was asking me to do something I had never done before. To speak, to share, to tell them. The responsibility of it felt heavy, heavier than anything I had ever carried. Would I stay silent? Would I ignore what I had been sent back to do? Would I pretend this had never happened? I could have. I could have pushed it down, buried it, let time wash over the memory until it faded into something distant and uncertain. But I knew the truth now. And once you see the truth, you can't unsee it. You can't go back. I stepped onto the sidewalk outside the hospital, gripping the bag that held my discharge papers. I pulled out my phone, staring at the blank screen. One choice. One moment. I could close my eyes, turn away, slip back into the life I had known before. Or I could step forward, not knowing where this path would lead, but trusting that I was no longer walking it alone. And so, with shaking hands, I began to type. Not just words. A testimony. A declaration. A truth that had changed me, and that I now had the responsibility to share with the world. This was just the beginning. If this story has touched your heart, don't stop here. There's something even more powerful waiting for you. Something that could change your life. Click on the next video that's appearing on your screen right now. It holds a message that might be exactly what you need today. And before you go, let's do something together. If this story has spoken to you, if you feel something stirring inside,